Hi. So it's been about a year since I've done one of these historically accurate Disney princess videos where I go and look through the movie and redraw all the characters' outfits based on what they would have looked like in the year that the movie was supposedly set in. The last one I did was Sleeping Beauty, and she was in medieval times, so go check that out if you haven't, if you like that kind of thing. Well, it's taken a while because this past year has been crazy. Anyways, we're here now and we're gonna take a look at 1991's Beauty and the Beast. Or is it 1992? I don't know, who cares? While I was doing research on this fairy tale, I discovered the original story was published in 1740? 1740. By the way, the gown that I'm wearing is a 1640s dress, so this is a century of inaccurate. I wore it because it's gold, it's the closest thing I have, and I don't have a robe à la française. The original story seemed to be going for the 1740s look based on the vague 18th century silhouettes of some of the characters. Although it doesn't seem like Disney was going for the 40s in this film. We will get into the Beast's attire more later, but in an attempt to narrow down the time period, I looked at his jacket, which looks strangely 1790s. This would not make any sense. This would not make any sense. This would not make any sense if it took place in the 90s in France, and he's royalty because, well, French Revolution. So I'm going to say the story has to take place earlier because of this. Another thing, a lot of historical interpretations of this seem to go for a 1770s or 1780s look for Belle. I think this makes fair sense. It's difficult to pinpoint exactly which decade this takes place in. Belle's dresses are exceptionally unhelpful, so I tried looking at some of the original concept art to hone in on the times, and some are all over the place. But others are definitely giving mid-century Rococo vibes. And since the original story is set in the 40s, I've decided to play it safe and go smack dab in the middle of the century. 1750s it is. Height of Rococo. Rococo. I figured it wasn't later because Belle's hair isn't as big as it would be in the 1770s or 80s. And Beast shouldn't have a 1790s tailcoat because the French Revolution would make him not exist. And most of the concept art seems to be based off of earlier in the century. Some even in the 1600s, which is what's going on with this dress. This is just my interpretation. I know some sites say 1790s or even 1880s. 1880s? Really? But I think I should go with the 1750s. So first off, if I am to set this in 1750s France, for one, the Beast would not be Prince Adam. He would have been King Louis XV of France, to be completely historically accurate. And although the castle is gorgeous in the movie, at this time Versailles was the place for the royal family to live. But this is a Disney movie, so let's just say that Prince Adam is real, he became King of France, and that he lives in an abandoned castle in the woods. First, we're going to start off with Provincial Belle, her iconic blue dress with an apron. Let's just say she would not have looked like this. This look is actually somewhat 1600s mixed with the 1850s. That's what I got from it anyway. First of all, her hair would have been covered with a cap because ladies need to cover their hair. Men too, it was the thing. Everybody had to cover their heads. Men always wore hats of some sort too. The cap would probably be made out of linen or silk, possibly a very fine silk if she happened to have some extra cash. But her father's an outcast inventor, so linen. She has this reoccurring bow throughout the movie, and I get it. Very Rococo, very Founding Fathers. But again, her hair would have been up, and she wouldn't have had her hair like down like that, because that was more like a men's hairstyle. No low ponytails for Belle. And her hair would have been covered with a cap. The historical silhouette at this time was a very conical shape, so she would have been wearing a pair of stays underneath to make that conical shape, so it's just like flattens down the ladies and cinches in that waist. You're good to go. What looks to be an undershirt shift thing wouldn't have been visible. She would have had a shift, yes, but the sleeves would have been 3/4 inch length, and the collar wouldn't have been to her neck. She would have worn a triangle shaped fichu to cover up her décolletage. A fichu is kind of like a scarf. It is a scarf. Her apron looks okay, but it probably would have had a piece that pinned to the front of her bodice. Instead of dainty black ballet flats, she would have had sturdy 18th century shoes with a sensible buckle and, well, stockings as well. What's up with Disney princesses not wearing socks? It was very cold a good part of the year where this movie is set, so Belle needs some stocks. So Belle needs some stockings. I don't know if I included this, by the way, but like the dress isn't just one thing back then. It was a skirt and a jacket. And now to the village. Fun fact, the village in the 2017 live action remake was based off of a real French town, the town of Concours in southern France. I don't know how to pronounce French things, I'm sorry. So that's been around since medieval times. It matches up with the 1992 cartoon village very well. Points for accuracy. So the villagers are a mix of styles. Again, it seems mid-18th century, judging by some of their hairstyles. The three that make up the Gaston fandom have absolutely no historical accuracy. Fun fact, they have the hairstyles of Ariel, Jasmine, and Belle. So these girls would more realistically be dressed in something like this. Again, what was in vogue back then was the very flat, conical bust shape. You wouldn't have seen the curve that they have up there. They would have wanted that flattened down. It would have definitely have something to cover themselves up. Well, unless they were ladies of the evening. But I don't think that's what Disney was going for. I would assume that maybe they were trying to imply they were just like Gaston fan club. And they would have had bonnets and butt pads to make their themselves really hippie. Again, the villagers are kind of everywhere. Some look 17th century, some look 18th, some look 19th. It's like a total of everything. So I'm not really going off of what the villagers look like, because they look like they could almost be from any century. They're all time travelers. All the villagers in Beauty and the Beast are time travelers. Just saying. Now, done with the boring villagers. The villain, Gaston. He's also in 1790s attire when he is in the scene where he's proposing to Belle. I get that that's the time that Disney was going for, but I literally hate that because the French Revolution definitely would have killed everyone. So again, I'm basing him off of the 1750s as well. In this scene, he shouldn't be wearing a tailcoat, but instead a jacket, perhaps made out of a real good red wool. And it would have been similar to other men's jacket styles at the time, like these. He would be in his fanciest, most specialist occasion attire. He also would have been wearing pants. They wore pants. It looks here that the guy is wearing ballet tights and a tunic with a belt. And if that's so, then he's a brave man. Pants are a must. The kind that stop at the knee because that was what was in style. They had like a little like flippy flap to close in the front. The pants back then didn't really go all the way to the ankle. For the vast majority, they were always wearing these knee length trousers. His hair isn't bad. I can't imagine him wearing a wig while hunting in the woods. So that doesn't seem to apply to his character, so I'm not giving him a wig. I'm just keeping it like it was. He's got a very pretty bow, by the way. The Disney live action remake actually did really well on his costuming. Anyway, for the cartoon, as to his regular day attire, by the way, Gaston is definitely a Leo. So his everyday attire is pretty simple, but again, what's with the tunic and tights? That man is supposed to be some kind of rough and tumble hunter, tracking down wild boars through the woods, not a ballerina. It's okay if he wants to be a ballerina, but I'm just saying, like, it probably doesn't help with his chosen career path. So again, he needs pants. I'm gonna get rid of his mini dress too. Sorry, Gaston, no mini dress for you. He needs a good sturdy linen shift with wrist-length sleeves and maybe some kind of wool vest to keep him warm. And since his job probably keeps him kind of grimy and he's an outdoorsman, again, I'm gonna give him a really sturdy leather coat. And his boots don't bug me too much. They have that pirate look, but I think they're okay. Like, they're okay. I mean, he could be wearing some, like, you know, regular 18th century shoes, but like, I get it, he's an outdoorsy man. Let's give him some boots. They had those. They had those. For his lackey, lackey, is that the right word? His minion, LeFou. He's not too bad. His collar looks kind of Regency, but then he doesn't have enough neck for a cravat. but I'm gonna give him one anyway. I'm gonna really work that cravat in there. He also wouldn't have such long pants again. We want to see the men's calves, baby. Belle's father looks pretty good for his character. He doesn't need to be completely presentable because he's locked in his house all day inventing things. I like that he seems to have a vest that's a bit longer, which was more in style in the 1750s. Can we take a second to appreciate how adorable he is, though? So before getting to the happy couple, I'd like to point out that Lumiere's pants are strangely poofy in his human form, like Elizabethan era poofy. So he probably wouldn't have such poofy pants. They need to tone it down in the poof department. His girlfriend Babette doesn't look 18th century in the slightest. It's just a stereotypical sexy maid costume. That's it. She's just dressed as a sexy maid for Halloween. Cogsworth is close to absolute perfection, of course. We stand Cogsworth. Although the mustache is a bit 17th century, Three Musketeers. Mrs. Potts and Chip's sleeves are both off. Hers are too long and his too short, and he should be wearing a little jacket if he's not still in his dress phase. Little boys wear dresses for a long time, by the way, like throughout history. It was great. Finally, one of the main characters is the Beast. In Beast mode, there isn't much to work with when he and Belle first meet. Like literally, he's literally a beast. He doesn't wear clothes. I mean, he wears pants. Oh, look at him, Gaston. Take a tip from Beast over here. You know, wearing pants. His pants look to be the proper length though, and he has a nifty cape. We stan nifty capes. But as the story goes on, we see that he gets a shift-like shirt, and even though this would be considered underwear, I think it would be okay to wear as outerwear considering he's a giant hairy monster who stays home all day. Also, this hairstyle that Lumiere and Cogsworth give him, chef's kiss. Like, it's gorgeous. It's definitely a Rococo version of a beard if they wore beards back then. Beards weren't in style, but you know, again, he's a beast, so if there was ever a Rococo version of a beard, this would be it. If he were human, I'd tell him to shave, but he's a beast, so... Now let's get to the important parts. First, his ballroom outfit as a beast. It's really good. Cravat and everything. The only thing I'd change again is the tailcoat because I'm setting this in the 1750s. They didn't have those. Again, you know, that's more 1790s going into the 18th century, 19th century. They all would have been dead by then because of the French Revolution, yada, yada, yada. You get it. You get the, I told you it before. So you know. So no tailcoat, just like this regular stylish, like long jacket at the time. So it's nice. It's a nice color. I probably would have added some more decoration and embroidery to the front of the jacket because that was really popular for menswear at the time too, especially the rich aristocracy. They had embroidery up the wazoo because they were rich and they could afford it, and he's a prince, so he definitely couldn't afford it. And after his transformation into a human, he's in the same outfit except human, and I mean later on in the movie, not when he just changes, because when he just changes he's still in like he's still in the shirt and the trousers, but when he is back in the ballroom with Belle at the end of the movie, he is wearing the same outfit that he did as a beast. Now, there are expectations because he's a prince. One, I gave him a powdered wig because of course I did. Again, no tailcoat. Also wouldn't have worn these long pants with boots. Like Disney just loves to give their princes boots. But no boots, no long pants. We're not in the 19th century yet. Let's slow down. Slow down. Again, knee-length pants were what was worn. I got rid of the boots. I gave him some shiny black-heeled shoes. Of course, he is a prince, so he could have had like any shoes he wanted. Like they could have been any color, any fabric. But I just went with like a simple like black because, you know, Disney likes their male leads traditionally masculine or something like that. I don't know. Okay, now we're down to the main character, the girl you've all been waiting for, Belle. So Belle has many outfits in this movie. All of them nothing like the dresses of the 18th century. It seems to be a total conglomeration of different periods. Disney movies always seem to be a mashup of different time periods, although Sleeping Beauties was pretty consistent. Belle's dresses were nothing, like all of Belle's dresses were nothing like what an 1750s woman would have worn. First of all, the green dress. Okay, the green dress in the library has puff sleeves. Puff sleeves, like this is not the 1830s, 1890s, or 1930s, so I got rid of the puff sleeves. No puff sleeves. Again, she needs a conical top, no rounded bust. You want those ladies packed in. Also, her sleeves are too long. Dresses of the time had 3/4 length sleeves, so like right at the elbow. I put her hair more in an updo instead of a low ponytail because that was more of a men's hairstyle again. And since she now lives in a castle, I powdered and pomaded her hair all pretty and stylish like the French aristocracy females would have worn. By the way, putting pomade and powder in your hair was akin to washing your hair back then. You're putting pig fat on your head and some powder. She would have worn a bum roll or a set of panniers, which were a supporting structure underneath her skirts to give that wide hip look that was oh so stylish in the 18th century. She also would have been wearing a robe à la Française, which was a very popular French gown at the time, which, I mean, makes sense. It's France. It's robe à la Française. So, yeah, there you go. I would like to comment on how nice the colors in Belle's wardrobe complement the era, though. The Rococo era loved pastels, very light, fluffy colors. Think cupcakes and flowers and everything, sugar and everything nice. I don't think there's been another era quite as soft and frilly as this one. Then there is her pink gown. This one actually has elbow-length sleeves, and it looks like some of her shift is showing through, or like she has the shell style sleeves on the bottom that really like flare out. I did similar tweaks to this one as I did the green dress with the panniers and the stays. So the cloak she was wearing was so cute and not too bad, although I think she would have worn something a little bit more like this, a little bit shorter. Now for her ball gown. So Belle's ball gown, it always gave me such a happy feeling just looking at it, and it looked so rich in color and shiny, and if this gold dress doesn't scream French aristocracy, I don't know what does. Fun fact, the French aristocracy used to pluck out their gold embroidery just because they were bored. Like, people worked hours and hours, days upon days on that embroidery because it was all hand done back then, and they were just like, I'm bored, I'm rich, I can afford it. I can afford to just get it done again, so I'm gonna just rip out the gold thread and like throw them away. Like the real gold, the gold is real. The gold is real, and they're plucking it out and they're throwing it. Anyway, the silhouette of her dress is all wrong though, of course. She would be wearing a robe à la Française. She should have her pair of stays on. She should have the panniers. This gown that she wears in the movie is just too bell-shaped. It looks something out of the 19th century, which again, some sources say that this is loosely based in the 19th century, but I never got that at all. Again, a lot of the concept art does not give 19th century at all, so I think they were just going for that shape because they figured it would probably be more marketable when they turn it into actual like little girls' costumes. This gown is too bell-shaped. Even if Disney was going for 1790s, this dress wouldn't have matched the styles that at the time were very like pre-Regency, very flowy. They were not bell-shaped at all. The waist was starting to rise at this time, like underneath the bust, and so it is like far from the style that she's wearing in this, and also far from the 1750 styles that I'm going for. So anyway, that's a no-go. I had to change that silhouette to this because Belle's off-the-shoulder look, although really gorgeous, just looked more 1830s, 1850s ball gown. So her hair would have been in the popular lamb-like style of the time. I made her hair powdered, and maybe she would have had some decoration or small flowers or like tiny shiny trinkets in her hair because eccentricity. This era was about extravagance. This era was about luxury. This era was about spending and spending and spending your money to show your social status, because that meant everything. The French court made that mean everything. So you wanted the most luxurious attire. So her and Beast, of course, would probably, like, their clothing would have been made out of gold. She would have had her gold robe à la française with, like, probably some gold embroidery that she'd eventually pluck out. Although I'd like to think she didn't, because she's, like, new to this whole French royalty world, and she'd probably just be staring at all the other aristocrats like, what are you doing, ruining your perfectly good clothing? Like, that's so snobbish. She'd probably hate it. Like, she's probably, to be honest, she'll probably hate her life after this movie, because she has nothing in common with the French aristocracy. But anyway, the Beast, again, he would probably have that gold embroidery that he'd eventually pluck out from his jacket as well. So that is my take on some of the costumes in this movie, as far as how historically accurate they would have been, and, you know, all the changes. All of Belle's outfits were not historically accurate, like, at all, like, other than probably their length, like. And the Beast, I gave him lots of leniency because he was a beast. Yeah, I think the movie ends on her gold dress and them dancing in a ballroom and them living happily ever after.